Okay, guys, there seems to be a lot of confusion about what we're doing in the Orgo um, final analysis and so forth. So let me back up and give you a little bit more background. So now that everyone has received their IRs, the goal is to examine your IRs, and I have three different IRs here that I'm going to show you. And the first one here, and you can see that if we scan through it, those are our CHs, and then we come down and we find this big peak, and that's around 17, and so we all know that's a carbonyl. And so when we test for carbonyls, then as soon as I identify that, then let me remind you about how we test for it. Now, the chemical testing for carbonyls is straightforward. We have to do a 2,4-DNP, and if it's positive, that means it's an aldehyde or ketone. Okay, so let's stay on the positive side. And so to distinguish between an aldehyde and a ketone, we would then do the chromic acid test, which would only react with an aldehyde. So if the chromic acid test is positive, then you have an aldehyde. If it is negative, by deduction, then we know our chemical must be a ketone. And then if we go back to our 2,4-DNP at the top, and then on the left side, if it was negative for 2,4-DNP, then we assume that it's an ester. And we can do the hydroxamic acid test to confirm the fact that it's an ester. That's how you do an analysis for a carbonyl containing compound. Now, if you have, let's go to the next one. And in this one, in this IR, you see that we have our CHs, but look, we have that big wide group that indicates we have an alcohol. Okay? Now, the only things that we need to do is to do the Lucas test and the chromic acid test. And that's just going to help you define whether the alcohol is actually primary or secondary or tertiary. Okay, and once you define whether it's primary, secondary, or tertiary, then we're going to use that information later to do our search. Now, I'll show you one more IR. And so let's look at this IR. Well, here we don't have any of that big carbonyl. We don't have any OH or anything like that. And so that one's pretty straightforward. These little short CHs, that's usually a suggestion that the compound might be aromatic, because aromatic CHs aren't so big. And then when I come down here, lo and behold, I see these little aromatic overtones that tell me that, hey, this is aromatic. And then the other thing that we see with aromatic compounds is we get these little single bonds between 16 and 15. These are carbon-carbon double bonds between 16 and 15. Carbon-carbon double bond between 16 and 15. And that's what you're trying to look for. Identifying features within the IR. And of course, and I'm not going to show one here, if you wind up with just CHs and then nothing present except for just a little fingerprint below 1500, then we're probably just looking at an alkane or an alkyl halide. Okay? Now, so that's how you're going to analyze. You have to analyze your own IRs, and then you have to send me a request to test for, like we saw in the case of the alcohol, you have to look at it, identify that it's an alcohol, and say, hey, my neat liquid is an alcohol. I need you to do the chromic acid and the Lucas test. Or if you look at it and see that you have a carbonyl, you need to ask me to say, hey, my low boiler has a carbonyl and I need to receive the carbonyl testing sequence. Okay? That's what each of you have to do. You must interpret your own IR. If you have problems interpreting your own IRs, then it is possible for me, and I don't want you doing it unless it's absolutely necessary. You could take a picture of your IR and send it to me, but you've already had a quiz on IR, and all of you now should be able to identify your own functional groups from the IR. Okay, now let's go to the next phase. So, in order for us to identify our, find our compounds, I want you to go to Google, and I want you to Google the following. You're going to do Google twice. The first Google, you're going to put in Colby Organic. Colby Organic. So you would put in COLBY Organic. And then search. When you do that search, the very first thing that you'll see is organic compound database. And you want to click on that, organic compound database. And when you click on that, it'll bring you to the Colby homepage, and what you're wanting to see, let me move my stand. And what you're wanting to see is welcome to Organic Compound Database. And you can put in your boiling point, and that would be plus or minus 5 degrees. Okay? And so once you put in your boiling point and plus or minus 5 degrees, you don't know your formula, so you just come on down and you would check depending on what you're looking for. For instance, if I were looking for butanol, 4 carbons, 1 oxygen, then I would put in no carbonyl, no aromatic, and OH present. And then I'd put down here saturated. Or you could check both saturated and unsaturated if you're not sure of exactly what you're looking for. Now butanol, so in order to do this search, butanol has a boiling point of, I can't remember. Well, I can't remember, but what we're going to do is we're just going to put in a boiling point just to emphasize for you. Say, let's put in 110 as a boiling point. And then we submit it. And you see up here, it gives us a list of alcohols, right? Now save that list, okay? That's your potential, one of these is your potential answer, right? So print out that list or write it out. And then we want to go do our next search. And our next search will be, we want to Google again. And this time you want to Google spectral database. So we'll come back in and do spectral, SPECTRAL, database. And once you've put in spectral database, just click on it. And you're going to get this site which it says AIST Spectral Database of Organic Compounds. And you want to click on that. Okay, so here we are. We've got to our spectral database. And now come down to the bottom and say, I agree to the rules of using this site. Click that. And then we can come in and you can put in the names that popped up on your list. And so just as an example, I'll put in a compound name of butanol. And I'll come down here and I'll say search. And there it's giving me all these variations on butanol, right? Cyclobutanol, 2-butanol, 2-methyl-1-propanol, 1-butanol. So let's say 1-butanol is the one that I want. I simply come over and look for the IR. Click on it. And voila, there's an IR. And so now we take the IR that we found in our database and we compare it to the IR that we have of our unknown and see if it matches. So you go through that entire list of possible candidates that you got on the first page and find the one that matches up with your particular compound, and that's how you do your identification. All right, guys, good luck.